Hello and welcome to another jungle video, and in this one we are going to be going over the best junglers for you to main in Season 11. Obviously from season to season this changes, but ideally the junglers for you to main are not necessarily ones that are part of the meta. Now being a quote-unquote meta slave is really just part of the game, you know, you're maximizing your chance to win games by playing the strongest champion. However, you can do the same thing by playing certain champions, you know, the best ones to main and spam the whole season, when they apply to certain principles, and I came up with 5 for this video. They must be meta agnostic, they must show signs of mastery over time, they must have lowish ban rates, versatility in position and itemization, and most importantly, a low possibility of random nerf, and maybe even buffs, because sometimes they do that and then it becomes meta and we're sad. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please consider leaving a like and of course subscribing. Head to the gameplay channel for all your champion goodness. Patreon is in the description below. And now without hesitation, let's begin. First up is Rengar, and just as a disclaimer, there is no particular order to this, and I will show on the title screens as you saw the helmets that indicate which elo they are best at. And as I said, although there is no order, I think Rengar deserves to be mentioned first. It is one of the funniest champions to watch someone play who has, 100 games with someone who's just picking it up. The difference in skill level is measured in astronomical units. It's almost like if you don't main the champion and spam it, it just looks like it's an absolutely terrible champion. It should be buffed 100 times because it obviously has a 30% win rate. But if you main it and you're very good at the game, you're most likely gonna reach high elo and then have it permabanned against you because people don't know how to deal with it when you are a good player. He doesn't really care about the meta, he adapts the best way. He doesn't really get buffed or nerfed at all. Since the 8.17 ult CDR buff, it has really just been years of bug fixes and rounding numbers. The only real touch since then was the 10.25 buff to his W, but that's because they removed Tiamat. We went into Season 11. A lot changed about the game and the jungle clearings, and that's all it really was. I have made a tips and tricks guide for Mobalytics using Rengar. I've made multiple guides of the champion for this channel as well. You need to learn the matchups. You need to know how to face smash your keyboard appropriately with the right buttons when you have those empowered abilities. There's no champion that rewards your dedication to matchups, itemization, damage output, pathing, scaling, meta adaptation. He really is the full ticket for the ultimate jungle to main. Secondly, I have to put Fiddlesticks because he seems to be one of these weird meta-transcendent champions. Yes, he will be banned a little bit more. No, he no longer has versatility in position, but he has a lot of versatility in his itemization and playstyles. Predator obviously is the classic way to go in Korea and high elo, but you can just as easily justify the Electrocute or the Dark Harvest and change your itemization and rune set accordingly. Yes, he did get 11.1 nerfs. Yes, he was nerfed in Season 11 after the rework, to prevent the lane tank Fiddlesticks. But really, he ignores the jungle world around him. He just does his own thing. He's so unique with his pathing and his ultimate. You should have no issue finding a way to fit into any meta, and that's why I really like him in the meta agnostic sense. Purely because after the jungle experience nerfs, you probably thought, it's a ganking meta, omnivore meta. He won't be able to AFK farm. His win rate didn't even budge. He's fine, and that's why the Predator rune set is so good now, because you can fill that time by ganking and then getting your level 6 just as fast with good clear sequencing, and his win rate is just perpetually high. He 100% rewards you understanding matchups, understanding damage output, because a Fiddlesticks that doesn't know exactly what he can do with his sucky suck, with his ultimate hippity hoppity, you're just gonna die and look funny. But the savants who master their clearing techniques and get done by 6 camps at 313, they're getting crabs in the right way, they're getting lanes ganked in the right way, and then they're surprising and obliterating squishies the right way. One of the best champions to main, no matter what the meta. Kindred is next up, and honestly, this is a little bit different because Kindred's data in terms of the difference between playing 50 plus games in ranked and, just starting out isn't as big as other champions like your Fiddlesticks, like your Rengars, but is one of the best champions that rewards feel and knowledge over time. Now, I spammed a hell of a lot of Kindred back in the day when they came out, especially in Season 6, as well as 7 actually, and they did go away for a time. They weren't really that strong in the meta, but you still had a lot of one-tricks, a lot of high elo Kindred savants making it work. Whether it was in Korea, NA, EU West, one can only assume Ionia and the Super Server, level 2 Scuttle Crab meta, 3 camp meta, 5 camp meta, Kindred could adapt to all of it. If you knew the champion, if you knew how to play the mark game within the flow of actually jungling, as well as balance that aggression, knowing your damage output, knowing your mark spikes, knowing your itemization versatility, because honestly, Kindred has had so much itemization versatility, it's actually irritating. And you will see from the gameplay channel 2 really great Kindred games showing completely drastically different styles, but knowing how to snowball and close games out with a lead is just quintessential Kindred. And when you're a mechanical menace, as Forrest likes to say, you can very easily take over any game, adapt your itemization, and adapt to any meta. Next up, Lady Queen Rexxar. You might not think of her as being in this sort of list because wow, Rexxar is kinda meta. Yeah, she is. and also isn't. It really was the Season 9 meta where Rexxar was super strong because they had those balance changes from 9.4 to 9.9, quality of life, changing a few things just to make it easier to play her in the jungle. She was actually quite weak at the time, but ever since then hasn't really been touched much. And the reason she does so well is because she is like the Elise, ever present in the early game. You have rune set versatility and itemization versatility in the Conqueror, Hail of Blades. You can go a little bit more tanky, you can go assassin, you can go fighter. And once you've mastered win conditions, finesse gank pathing, dives, invades, this is really rewarded by putting in a lot of time on the champion, and most people know from Season 9 how much I spammed her. And I really felt, once you get into the 100+ games in the season, everything just becomes automatic. You know the gank pathing, you know all the matchups, and you feel so much in control of the early game as a jungler, and that's really something that you can never underrate, and it's why she's one of the best junglers to main. Next up, we have the tree, and no, not the Maokai tree, even though I do miss my good old Season 7 or whatnot Maokai jungle. Ivan is a classical tree in the forest. Now he does get tinkered with a decent amount, especially in Season 11, but the unique hit and pathing and the supportive gameplay of this champion means that it doesn't really matter what you do to him, you're still gonna main him, you're still gonna spam him, you're still gonna have that big brain pathing tactic, you're gonna be everywhere. If you know the matchups for all the junglers, what they want to achieve from a pathing perspective, and you adapt yours accordingly to mess with them, to get ahead of them, to create tempo control, you will frustrate them, you will vex them, and then once you get to the team fights and mid-game skirmishes, you just identify the win condition, you do the Tyler 1, and you just win the team fight. You disrupt, you stun, you shield, you chase down, you bushwhack. And does anyone really care about the meta when it comes to this? You also have that versatility in itemization, and honestly, you have seen a little bit of position versatility as well. A little bit of top lane, mid lane. I don't recommend the ADC though. But most importantly, Ivan has the second highest win rate differential between 50+ ranked games played and the general average win rate, 9.7%. It's so unique, you have to spam it, you have to main it, you have to just play it throughout all different kinds of meta to get the best version of your tree self, which is why he's one of the best to main. Now this is a surprise, but Rammus has to be in this list. You might think, well, Rammus is kind of easy. You just clear a little bit, farm and taunt someone. What's so difficult about that? Why would he be a good champion to main? Now first thing, the Brazilian Rammus is kind of scary. If you look for high elo Rammus gameplay, you're gonna get Brazil most of the time. It's really weird. But most importantly, aside the few tinkerings in Season 11 because of the item changes and the ultimate rework, he doesn't get touched that much. He simply carries on being okay. He isn't played that much, he isn't banned that much, and he counters all AD comps, which is just great because most people seem to love that. But ultimately, yes, he doesn't really have all those signs of mastery and the versatility as other champions in this list, but he doesn't really care about the meta, and most importantly, the data I just referenced for Ivan, instead of having a 9.7 differential, he is third with a 9.2 differential. That means those who spam Rammus, those who love Rammus, those who live the life of Rammus, succeed at a much higher level than those of us who just pick Rammus just to maybe counter the Yasuo Vaynemaster Yi team comp. A lot of that has to do with how much damage you can dish back to them, how much you can actually absorb, as well as your pathing for ganking and windows for taunt. A lot of that is again like the Ivan, knowing which target you want to obliterate and which targets you need to peel for really is just something that you learn over time when you have this particular playstyle. You need a tank and you don't care about the meta? Don't play Sejuani or Zac. They will get buffed, they will get nerfed, but the Rammus is always okay. Next we have Skarn, and that's because he literally is the last of his kind, and it shows because unless he's Giga OP, people hate playing him, yet he continues to be a very solid jungle main one-trick champion thing. He has the lowest ban rate out of the top 46 junglers played at 0.1%. His pick rate is only 0.8%, and yet his win rate is almost 52%. Basically, you will be able to play him until the end of the universe, and he most likely won't be banned unless Riot randomly buffs him. Farming, ganking, teamfight control, and general champion matchup knowledge all get rewarded by people forgetting you exist. Obviously, you've got Emax, you've got the Qmax, you've got the farming, you've got the ganking. Pick your style of Scorpion and sting appropriately. But don't actually go up to a real Scorpion and do that because you're not a meerkat. And you're probably thinking, wow, thanks Virkayu, I didn't realize I shouldn't touch a Scorpion. Yeah, I grew up in South Africa. We've seen a lot of kids actually try and do it. Next up, we have Jarvan IV, and even though he doesn't really have the signs of mastery or maybe always the ban rate that's as low as possible, he does have versatility of position, atomization, he doesn't care about the meta ever, and yes, he's more likely to get buffed than nerfed, but they like to keep him in that sort of average tier level of play. which means he's a great champion to main because he's not going to be nerfed or buffed to the degree that he's hardcore meta, and he's never really going to be banned, at least in this current season. There are some advanced mechanics with the E-flash combos and whatnot, but ultimately he's easy to use and you can go full on assassin, you can go full on tank, and you can go full on bruiser. While obviously he is better in ganking metas, farming metas can still be caught out by the fact that he is so hyperactive and has such a strong teamfight component with any other AoE champion. As long as you build him right and exert the correct pressure, Jarvan will always be a great jungler to use. He just got the W buff as well. It's not going to propel him into the meta, but it just helps those who wish to be a bit more alive in those teamfights. Great champion to main, always relevant. He's like plain white bread. You can always find it in the store. It's not the most exciting, but it's always gonna be there. Now we have to talk about Khazix. Interestingly, actually near the bottom section of experienced player win rates versus new player win rates, because he's not that difficult to play, but there's definitely some advanced experience mechanics you can use, and he's always strong. He's always the best assassin AD jungler, and when he's not on the meta, you always have this assassin slash bruiser Agurum build, and you can adapt your evolve paths throughout the game state as well as the meta state. He's just always good in the jungle no matter what. However, the only reason he's at the end of this video is because he is actually meta defining at the moment. He is actually very, very strong. So while he's actually good to still main in the jungle in Season 11, you might have him banned against you a lot more than in other seasons, but he really still rewards those who put in the time to understand how he works in terms of those evolves, in terms of the builds and the runes, and how he adapts to certain metas because he always seems to make it work. Warwick is actually almost exactly the same, an absolutely amazing champion to learn and main to climb up initially. But now you want diamond, you reach gold with Warwick, now you want diamond. You don't need to swap champions, keep playing Warwick, he will get you there very, very easily. And again, you can actually get him to master tier with no problem. It becomes more difficult purely because he is much more meta dependent than any other champion in this video. Last year's farming meta was a great example of this. However, you've got the Divine Sunderer build, you've got the Sunfire build, you can go full tank, you can go AD, you can flex other items as well. And while his skill floor is some of the lowest in the game, he has an insane level of mastery in terms of the mechanics required to really show you a good Warwick versus a bad Warwick. A lot of that I've covered in many of my videos. But honestly, a lot of it comes down to pathing, team fighting, as well as knowing how to close games out with this champion. Most people just team fight wrong. They R at the wrong time, they E at the wrong time, they don't use his healing passive and W passive appropriately, but as long as the meta is somewhat suited to the champion, one of the best you can use to main and maim. Finally, our bonus section here is Schalke and Wukong. Wukong because he has a low ban rate, a low play rate, super high win rate, and has a big gap between new players and experienced players, which actually surprised me. But maining this champion means you not only have a lot of build versatility and power in the jungle, you can take him top lane and also even support lately. However, he is a bit more tied to his raw numbers as well as items, so when he's exploiting something it could be nerfed, when he is too strong he will be nerfed. And Chago is kind of the same thing, except he is just super strong at the moment, way too strong. He got minor nerfed, it isn't enough. He is something that needs to be sort of mediocre for the general population, but really strong for those who have one-tricked it or mained it for a lot of games. The playstyle and pathing is so unique that when it is strong, it just gets banned a lot because the cheese is so irritating, it's frustrating to play against. So while a Shaco to one-trick or to main is my recommendation almost always because of the degenerate playstyle you need to embrace, you know, Satan spawn and whatnot, this season in particular I foresee more changes, more nerves, and honestly he's just going to be banned a lot. But otherwise you have jungle and support gaming as you wish, and that wraps up the best champions for you to main in the jungle for every single rank. I hope you enjoyed and learned something. Quite a few champions you just won't see on a best junglers tier list, but it doesn't mean you can't use them to climb, win, gain LP, and have a lot of fun. Thank you very much for watching. Please do consider liking and subscribing if you appreciate the content and want more, and I will see you all in the next tutorial.